So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spy Knight, and in this podcast, I love talking on things, movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I am reviewing The Last of Us Season 2. So, let's get into it, shall we? The Last of Us Season 2 is, of course, the follow-on to The Last of Us Season 1, which came out 2 years ago now. I'm kind of sick of these 2-year gaps between seasons of TV shows we're getting, and we're getting them a lot right now. We're getting it with House of the Dragon, we're probably going to get it with Severance, we just got it with The Last of Us. There's probably other examples that I'm forgetting off the top of my head right now, but the point is, the last season of The Last of Us came out 2 years ago. The first season of this show came out 2 years ago, and when that first season came out, everybody was raving about it. Everybody's raving about it as if it was like the second coming, you know? But I didn't love it quite as much as other people did. I didn't think it was a bad season television, not at all. But I didn't think it was nearly as great as everybody was making out to be. Still, I thought it was a very solid piece of television with some great, effective storytelling. So I was looking forward to and I was intrigued with Season 2, with the upcoming Season 2 of the show, because of how Season 1 ended. And I'm not going to do much of a lead, and I'm not going to faff about in this review today. I'm going to get straight into it. Honestly, I've been thinking a lot about The Last of Us over the past 7 weeks whilst Season 2 has been airing. And I've come to the conclusion that this show isn't really for me, and I think I'm going to give up on it. It's not without merit. It's not without great merit. But it's also lacking a lot to make it a great show, in my opinion. Like, there are great scenes and sequences throughout this season of The Last of Us. Scenes and sequences which grab you emotionally and make you almost want to tear up. Scenes and sequences which are so well crafted, and you're constantly drawn to the screen when these great scenes and sequences happen within the season. But ultimately, they're great scenes and sequences, and I don't know if the episodes in this season overall are great. I don't know if individually they are great. I mean, I would probably say that episode 2 of the season was great. I thought episode 2 was fantastic. I thought episode 1 was also great. And I really liked episode 6. But even those episodes, well, they have a great scenes and great sequences, but I don't have to have a great overall story. They kind of feel like great scenes and sequences just kind of mashed together. And it does feel like it's taken from a video game. And I haven't said this in this review. I should have said it straight off the bat, but I forgot to. I have never played the video game that this show is based on, so I don't know how this show differs from the source material, but the point is, when I'm watching the show, I can tell that it's been adapted from a video game. Whilst if you look at something like the Fallout TV show, which came out last year, and that's another show, we're waiting 2 years to see the second season of that, which is annoying with a capital A, but that's another topic for another day. The thing is about Fallout, when I was watching that show, it didn't feel like a video game adaptation. I mean, I knew at the back of my head it was, but it didn't feel like it when I was watching it. But with The Last of Us, I can tell that this has been adapted from a video game. It feels like I'm watching cutscenes. It doesn't feel like I'm actually watching a story fully play out. It feels like we're constantly skipping to the next bit of the story, but it doesn't, we don't stick anywhere for too long. Like in the first 2 episodes of this season, well, in the first 3 episodes actually, we're in this sort of town, and I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. Let's get to know the characters. Let's get to know how this community works. Let's get to know how people treat one another in this community, the relationships in the community. And we get to know a bit of that, but not nearly enough. Let's spend time there. I wouldn't have minded if this whole season of The Last of Us just took place at this one town, and and then what we get to see in episode 2 of this season happens at the end of this season. I think that would have been more effective, or happened in the penultimate episode. But instead, it happens too early. So what you get in episode 2, and spoil it here because you haven't seen episode 2 yet, but it's been out for a couple of weeks. But still, if you haven't seen the show yet and you're planning to see it, but you just haven't got around to it, spoiler alert here, in episode 2, there's this big battle with the infected, the things that you're meant to be scared of in this world. And the infected are killing all the people in this town. But I'm like, why don't I feel more emotionally grabbed by this? Why am I not caring as much about these people dying? And the reason is because I don't really know about these people. And then you get to episode 3 and it doesn't feel like most of the people in this town died, actually. It feels like most of them are still alive. And it's like, why am I not caring as much? And it's because I don't know as much about this town as I would like to, and it's because we don't get to spend that much time in any one place in this season of The Last of Us. It always feels like it's trying to get to the next bit of the story, whilst if this was like the first, 4, maybe even 5 seasons of Game of Thrones, you would get to the end of the season, and it would be like I said. It would just be, this season would all be about the community, and that's what I think this season of The Last of Us should have really been like. Because once, what's her name in the show? Ellie, I think that's the name of the main character. Once she goes on her revenge story, I'm like, I'm not that interested in this because, first of all, I'm going to again spoil it here because you haven't seen the season of The Last of Us and you're planning to, but just don't go around to watching it yet. Pedro Pascal is no longer in it, and I thought Pedro Pascal was the best thing from this show. I know some people are saying he's a bit ubiquitous at the moment, he's in too many things, and maybe that's the truth, but I thought he was brilliant in The Last of Us, and I thought he was brilliant in this season in particular, but he's only in 3 episodes in the season because he gets killed off in the second episode, he comes back in a flashback in the penultimate episode. And what you get a lot in the season is Ellie going on this revenge because of Joel's death. And I'm like, okay, this could be interesting, but the way it's done doesn't grab me as much. Like, in episode 3, I'm not sure if it's episode 4 and episode 3, I can't remember. That's how much the episodes have stuck with me. I can't remember what happens in each one of them, all kind of morphed together, which I don't know if it's a particularly good sign. Maybe it is. Anyway, the point I'm making is, in one of the episodes, it's episode 3 or episode 4, you see Ellie and Dina go on this trek to Seattle to go and find the people that killed Joel. And on that trek, you never get a feeling like they're going to come into contact with the infected, yet the infected are meant to be all over this world. And then when you get to Seattle, it doesn't really feel like they're ever under threat. Yet again, the infected are all over this world. They're meant to be all over this world. But I never feel like our main characters that we're following in this season are going to die from the infected. I never feel like they're really in any danger. Then when they do get into dangerous situations, I'm like, where does this come from? It's come out of nowhere. It doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel like the filmmakers and the writers behind this show have been building up to this scene with the infected, or this scene with the bad guys in the season that are not the infected. And that's another thing. You get, in this season of The Last of Us, you didn't get it so much in the first season. I mean, you get it a little bit, but not nearly as much. In this season of The Last of Us, you get to see that there are these different armies and these different communities and different cults. You get to see there's cults in this world, in this post-apocalyptic world of The Last of Us. And the thing is, I'm watching this, I'm like, why are there cults? Why are there armies? The show doesn't give me a reason why all these communities are split up. You would think that after everything that's happened in the world of The Last of Us, all these communities, all the people that are alive would come together. But apparently not, and apparently the people that are alive are fighting one another. I'm like, why? Wouldn't the villains just be the infected? I don't quite get that myself. And the point I'm making about Ellie's storyline is it's not bad to watch because I think Bella Ramsey makes it at least good to watch because of their magnetic performance. Bella Ramsey is brilliant in this season of The Last of Us. I don't care what anybody says. I think Bella Ramsey is a brilliant actor, and I respect their pronouns. I think they're brilliant in this season of The Last of Us. But they, to me, are the most compelling part of Ellie's storyline. Ellie's storyline is not that compelling, in my opinion, because I kind of feel like I've seen it done in other TV shows, and I never really feel like the character of Ellie, or Dina for that matter, because Dina is on the quest for vengeance with Ellie, I never really feel like those two characters are under any danger. And yet I should in every episode be on the edge of my seat, but it feels like they're just walking around Seattle without a care in the world for quite a bit of the latter half of this season. And I don't think they should have killed Pedro Pascal off soon. I don't think they should have killed him off when they killed him off in this season of The Last of Us. I understand that he dies in the games. I understand the character of Joel dies in the second Last of Us game. But at the end of the day, a TV show is not a game, and a game is not a TV show. You can change what you're adapting off. I actually like when I find out that an adaptation has changed something from the source material, has done something different. And apparently, Joel's death was done differently in the game. I don't know. I heard that from some movie pundit I was watching online talk about episode 2 of this season of The Last of Us, but. The problem is, Pedro Pascal was, in my opinion, the most interesting element of the show of all. Both his performance and his character. And yet, he's only in 3 episodes of this season. And I'm like, ugh. And when he comes back in the penultimate episode, which is a whole flashback episode, I'm like, okay, this is great to see him again. I love seeing Pedro Pascal again. But this is just reminding me of how much I'm going to miss the dynamic between Joel and Ellie in seasons 3 and 4 of The Last of Us, because it is confirmed that this show, the showrunners of The Last of Us want this show to run for 4 seasons. And the chances are Pedro Pascal won't pop up in the next 2 seasons of The Last of Us, if they get made, until perhaps the last episode and a cameo to sort of round things off. If that, because Pedro Pascal is so busy right now and he's in everything, you know. But when he's in this season, I'm like, yeah, he's great, I love him, but I wish we got to see a lot more of him. Like, episode 6 was a really good episode in my opinion. It had its problems, but it was a really good episode. However, it felt, like I said before, it felt like great scenes kind of stitched together. And for me, it didn't make a great episode. It made a really good episode, but not a great episode because of that. And what I think should have been the case is episode 6 should have been like the first 3 episodes of this season. Or like this, you know, it should have been like episodes 2, 3, and 4. Let's actually get to know about Joel and Ellie's relationship before Joel dies. And I understand that might be the point, that you don't get to know you don't really get to know until later on, you know, about Joel and Ellie's relationship before Joel dies. But I think if you got to know about how their relationship had fallen apart by the time that Joel died, it would have been more effective when you see Ellie watching Joel be killed. That would have been far more effective if you knew where the relationship was at that point. But because you don't, and because you find out later on, and it isn't nearly as effective in my opinion, and I was watching Joel's death thinking, okay, this is incredibly well done, this is heartbreaking to watch because I love the character of Joel, but why am I not feeling as sad for Ellie in this scene? And that's because, well, she wasn't treating Joel particularly nice in the first 2 episodes. I understand why we get to episode 6, but why did I have to wait till episode 6 to find out why she wasn't being particularly happy with Joel in the first 2 episodes? I just think that the choice in the episode order of this show, if you follow my thinking, should have been better, you know. I think that episode 6 should have been like the first 3 episodes of this season of The Last of Us, and let's actually get to know about this community, because they're in this community for the first 2 episodes, for the first 3 episodes actually, but then they leave this community, and I'm like, well, I want to know about the people in this community. They've all survived the infected. Let's actually get to know about them. Let's get to know about the relationships in this community. Let's actually get to spend time with these characters. But we don't. So when things happen to these characters, like, I'm not going to go into spoilers because the episode has just come out, but in the last episode, a certain thing happened to a certain character, and I'm like, well, I don't care about that character because I don't know anything about that character. I barely know anything about that character, yet I would know something about that character if we focused on that character a bit more in the first 3 episodes. If you've watched the last episode, hopefully you understand what I'm getting at, but I just feel like this season of The Last of Us is going too quick, and I think that's also because it's only 7 episodes long. Why, in this modern world, are we getting 6 to 7? I mean, there's a TV show on Netflix right now which has got only 5 episodes, and yet it's meant to be a season length of television. I'm like, what is this? Why was the first season of The Last of Us 9 episodes, and this season is 7 episodes? Why aren't we getting more storytelling? Why isn't it stretched out more? Because I actually think this is one of the cases where if you stretched out the story, it would have benefited the show overall. But again, it feels like cutscenes. It feels like cutscenes from a game. That's what I feel like I'm watching. I don't feel like it's a particularly good game adaptation because I feel like I'm watching a game adaptation, and I don't feel like I should be watching a video game adaptation when I'm watching said video game adaptation, if you get what I'm saying. When I'm watching the show, it feels like I'm watching a video game adaptation, whilst when I'm watching like Fallout, I don't feel like that's the case. And again, there are perks with this series. I'm not saying there aren't. The performances are all great. Isabel Merced really surprised me. I mean, not that she wasn't great in Alien Romulus, which came out last year, but she wasn't given loads to do in that film. And she was really good in this series, and I'm looking forward to seeing her in Superman later this year. She seems to be a rising star right now, that we're going to see quite a few things over the next couple of years. And yeah, I think she's great. I think all the performances are great. I think production value is clearly evident when you're watching the show, and I've spoken about this on the channel in the past. When you're watching a show that has a big budget, and you can tell that the show has a big budget, or when you're watching a film that has a big budget, and you can tell that said film has got a big budget, then I always admired that, because it makes me go, oh yeah, like, you can tell where the money's been spent, and I like when you can tell that a lot of money has been spent on a TV show or on a film, if you follow my thinking. I don't mean how much I'm making sense. I don't know if you can tell. I'm kind of bummed up right now because of hay fever. It's that time of the year where it really gets to me. But anyway, I love the production value of the show. I think it's a well-directed show, and there are so many scenes in this season of The Last of Us in particular which hit me emotionally. But ultimately, I don't think the episodes really hold well together. I don't think each episode is kind of its own thing, if you get me. I don't think the episodes hold together as an episode, and what you get is a show that ends up feeling episodic. And I understand that it is an episodic form of entertainment. I get that. But you can watch TV series, like, I've been watching Andor Season 2. I reviewed that last week on this channel. Was it last week? Yeah, it was last week. Feels like it was long ago, but it was last week on this channel. And the thing is about Andor Season 2, and the whole of Andor as a whole, you can watch Andor and it doesn't feel episodic. It almost feels like you're watching a film but told in the form of television, and it works in its favour remarkably well. But with The Last of Us, it feels like I'm watching a TV show, and I'd prefer if it didn't. And I know that might sound like a petty criticism, but whenever I sit down to watch an episode of The Last of Us, I'm like, okay, what's going to happen in this episode? Is it going to be? I know it's going to be different than the last episode, and I know it's going to feel episodic. I don't particularly like episodic storytelling. I don't think it works, and I actually think it can make for kind of jumpy storytelling, if you follow what I'm saying. And again, there are things that I like about this series. I'm not saying it's bad. I just don't know if it's for me anymore. And I don't think I am going to watch Season 3, particularly with how Season 2 ended. I'm not going to go into spoilers with how Season 2 ended, because Season 2 just ended. But I was like, I got to the end of the season, I was like, okay, well, I'm not really interested in seeing that person's storyline, and I can kind of tell what was going to happen with that cliffhanger, because, well, that person isn't going to leave the show. So, the point I'm making is, there is a lot to like about The Last of Us. There is a hell of a lot to like. And I think Bella Ramsey is brilliant in the series. And I don't understand the hate they're getting with their performance. I think, yeah, they're great in the series. And the other performances are really good as well. And there were great scenes and sequences in the show overall. But to me, it's just not a great show, because it doesn't all hold together. It feels like a video game adaptation, and I don't mean that as a good thing. And it feels like cutscenes from a video game. It feels like they adapted from the video game a little too much. Like, it feels like they adapted from the video game scene to scene to scene, and I would have preferred more more going away from the source material and seeing what they could do. How could they do more world building? Because although you get the feeling that the whole world is being taken over by the infected in The Last of Us, you never really feel it like when you're watching it. Like, you're told the whole world is being taken over by the infected in The Last of Us, but you don't feel it when you're watching it. And the world building that is done when you find out about these cults and these armies, I'm like, why is the world building being done like this? It doesn't feel like it's particularly well done, and it feels rushed, and I just don't think it's the quality TV that so many people are making out to be. And listen, if you loved this season of The Last of Us, I don't want to take that away from you whatsoever. I really don't. There's too many people out there on YouTube or on social media in any form nowadays going, well, if you like this show, you're an idiot. I don't understand why. And I'm not one of those people. If you loved this season of The Last of Us, heck, if you just liked it, if this is the sort of show that you like, then I don't want to take that away from you whatsoever. But personally, for me, this show moves too quickly. We don't really get to know enough about the characters before certain things happen to them, and I think that 7 episodes isn't enough to make for an emotionally engaging story to run throughout all 7 episodes. Like, again, you get emotional moments in each and every episode, but the underlying story isn't emotionally engaging enough because of the way it's structured, because of the way this season of The Last of Us is structured, and I think that the decisions they made, like moving away from this community that we see in the first 2 episodes, or the first 3 episodes of this season, was not a particularly, my computer's trying to speak to me there, was not a particularly good decision at the end of the day. And to me, The Last of Us is one of those shows where I can admire it, but ultimately, I come away from each episode thinking, I wish I felt more. That's not to say I don't think there are great episodes in the season of The Last of Us. I think the first 2 episodes are great, and I thought that the 6th episode of this series, the penultimate episode of the season, was really good. But I also felt they could have been better. I just feel like this show doesn't quite achieve greatness because it's following off the source material too much, in my opinion. And that's coming from somebody who hasn't played the source material that the show is based on. But at the same time, it feels like it's honouring the source material too much. And I don't like that. You can clearly tell, in my opinion, that this is a TV show based on a video game. And I would prefer not to get that feeling from this show. And so, all in all, I feel kind of bad giving The Last of Us a rating because, as I said, this show isn't for me, and not everything out there is going to be for me. But I'm going to give it a rating nonetheless. I'm going to say that The Last of Us... Okay, this is going to sound like a harsh rating, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to say it's a 6 out of 10. I'm giving it that rating because there's a lot to like about the show. There's a lot to admire about it, but I can't say that I think it's quality TV. I can't. Especially when you compare it to other TV shows that have come out this year, like Severance, like Andor Season 2. And you get to this show, and, when I watched Severance Season 2 earlier this year, I am flabbergasted by that show. I was flabbergasted by Season 2 of Severance. And Andor Season 2, I thought was a work of art. But I don't get that from The Last of Us. And yet, from all the raving out there, from the viewers and pundits online, I feel like I should get that. And I feel like maybe this show has... I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore. I don't think this show is quality TV. And although, again, there was a lot that I like about it, I ultimately come away from each episode thinking, I don't get why everyone's raving about it. I don't get it. It feels like great scenes stitched together that don't ultimately make a great episode. For the most part. There are some episodes which are great in the season, but each episode feels like it's accomplishing a little too much. Let's spend some time at these locations that we visit in the show. Let's actually get to know these characters. Because for the most part, with the new characters in the season, I'm not feeling anything. And yet I want to. And, yeah. that's not a great thing when you're not feeling much for the characters in the show. And the characters that you do care about are killed off pretty early in the season, particularly in this season. The character I cared about the most was killed off early on, and I felt that character, again, you could have killed that character off. I'm fine with the character being killed off. I'm not against that, but I think they should have killed Joel off in the penultimate episode of the season instead. So yeah, this season of The Last of Us, I think, proved that the show ultimately isn't for me. And that is why I'm going to say once more that The Last of Us is a 6 out of 10 for me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen The Last of Us, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. If you loved it, that's great. I don't want to take that away from you at all. This is just my opinion, and please respect my opinion. You know, everybody has one opinion on a TV show and a film, and this is just my opinion on The Last of Us. And if you loved it, that is awesome. So yeah, please let me know your thoughts on this season of The Last of Us in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts and many more videos coming very, very soon on this channel. As I already said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast. And I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.